Good morning. Welcome to Bible study. Today we're going to continue learning about Moses. We began the story of Moses last week, and that's going to continue today. We can find Moses' story in the book of Exodus, the second book of the Bible. Can you remember with me the names of the first two books of the Bible? Remember, the Bible begins with Genesis, the book of beginnings. And in Genesis, we read about God's relationship beginning with God's people, with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Then the story continues in the next book, in the book of Exodus, with Moses and Moses leading God's people called the Israelites. So the Bible begins with Genesis and then goes to Exodus. Let's get our Bibles and practice finding the book of Exodus. So if we open up toward the beginning, we can find the book of Genesis. And so then if we keep turning the pages, we can get to the book of Exodus. Can you find Exodus in your Bible? So last week we read stories from Exodus 1 and 2. And we were able to find the stories by finding the big numbers on the pages. Today we're going to begin in Exodus 3. So can you find Exodus 3 in your Bible? If you need a moment to pause to find it, or pause to go get your Bible and then find it, you can do that now. Let's find together Exodus 3. Above that, it tells us what's going to happen. Moses at the burning bush. That is today's story. But before we hear it, let's remember the stories we've learned together so far. God was with Abraham and Sarah's family as they traveled to new places, had children and grandchildren, wronged each other, and made peace. God was with them when they made mistakes, while they worked, and when they forgave each other. Over time, their family grew so large that they became a great nation, just as God had promised. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was afraid of the people and made them slaves. He commanded that all the baby boys be killed. Moses' mother, one of Abraham and Sarah's descendants, and sister protected him by placing him in a basket by the river. Pharaoh's daughter found Moses and made sure he was cared for. Who, me? Moses is called from Exodus 3 and 4. Moses grew up in the palace with the Egyptians. One day he went out to see his people, the Israelites. They were suffering as slaves. In anger, Moses killed an Egyptian who was beating an Israelite slave. Pharaoh was furious. So Moses ran away to the land of Midian. There he married Zipporah, had children, and cared for his father-in-law's sheep. One day he led his flocks out to Horeb, the mountain of God. The Lord's messenger appeared to him in a flame of fire in the middle of a bush. Moses saw that the bush was in flames, but it didn't burn up. Moses said to himself, "Let me check out this amazing sight and find out why the bush isn't burning up." When the Lord saw that he was coming to look, God called to him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." Moses said, "I'm here." Then the Lord said, "Don't come any closer. Take off your sandals because you are standing on holy ground." God continued, "I am the God of your father, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God." Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I've clearly seen my people oppressed in Egypt. I've heard their cry of injustice because of their slave masters. I know about their pain. I've come down to rescue them from the Egyptians in order to take them out of that land and bring them to a good and broad land, a land that's full of milk and honey. God told Moses that Moses would be the one to lead the people out of slavery. But Moses said to God, Who am I to go to Pharaoh and to bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God said, I'll be with you, and this will show you that I'm the one who sent you. After you bring the people out of Egypt, you will come back here and worship God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, If I now come to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your ancestors has sent me to you, they are going to ask me, What's this God's name? What am I supposed to say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. So say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God told Moses to go to the leaders of the Israelites and tell them that they would soon be set free. Then Moses replied, But what if they don't believe me or pay attention to me? They might say to me, The Lord didn't appear to you. The Lord said to Moses, What's that in your hand? Moses replied, A shepherd's rod. The Lord said, Throw it down on the ground. So Moses threw it on the ground and turned it into a snake. Moses jumped back from it. Then the Lord said to Moses, Reach out and grab the snake by the tail. So Moses reached out and grabbed it, and it turned back into a rod in his hand. Do this so they will believe that the Lord, their God of their ancestors, Abraham's God, Isaac's God, and Jacob's God, has in fact appeared to you. Again, the Lord said to Moses, Put your hand inside your coat. So Moses put his hand inside his coat. When he took his hand out, his hand had a skin disease, flaky like snow. Then God said, Put your hand back inside your coat. So Moses put his hand back inside his coat. When he took it back out again, the skin of his hand had returned to normal. If they won't believe you or pay attention to the first sign, they may believe the second sign. If they won't believe even these two signs or pay attention to you, then take some water from the Nile River and pour it out on dry ground. The water that you take from the Nile will turn into blood on the dry ground. Moses still did not want to go to Pharaoh. I've never been able to speak well, he said. God promised to help Moses speak and to teach him what to say. Even still, Moses asked God to send someone else. Finally, God told Moses that his brother Aaron could go with him and speak for him. Moses picked up his shepherd's rod and went. I wonder, during this time, let's think together about this story and ask questions and imagine what it was like to be there. I want to begin by imagining what it would be like to see a bush that was on fire but not burning up. I wonder what it was like for Moses to hear God's voice. I wonder what God's voice sounds like. Moses was asked to do something very important. Can you imagine God asking you to do something very important? What would you say? how would you feel? Moses wanted God to send someone else. I wonder who Moses thought God should send to Egypt instead of him. God showed God's power and that God was with Moses. I wonder how Moses felt as he saw the snake on the staff and the skin disease on his hand. What do you wonder about today's story? As I show you today's picture and add it to our other pictures, I want you to think and wonder about this story. And come back next week and we'll find out what happens next.